Did you know that a newborn mammoth calf could lose heat so quickly that a single windy night could decide whether it lived to see spring? Ice Age giants survived extreme cold because evolution solved two problems at once, which were heat loss and energy loss. And if either one got out of balance for long enough, the animal failed no matter how large it was. So what did these animals have that worked? And why did it let them dominate frozen landscapes for thousands of years? The story starts with calves. Because adult mammoths look unstoppable, but calves are small. They cool faster and they have almost no reserves if feeding becomes difficult. A young animal also attracts predators because predators rarely choose the strongest adult first when an easier target exists. So the herd had to protect calves while also keeping them warm enough to grow. Would you survive your first winter if you were born into a world where every cold hour costs calories and where falling behind in growth makes you weaker the next day? Timing mattered because births that happened when food was more available gave mothers a better chance to produce milk while keeping their own body condition, and gave calves time to gain weight before the hardest cold arrived. Group living mattered too, because mammoths lived in social groups, and a tight herd makes it harder for predators to isolate a calf, while also reducing the chance that a calf is separated during storms when visibility drops and wind noise covers danger. If a blizzard hits and the herd must keep moving, what protects the smallest bodies from being left behind? Once calves grew, body size became a strong cold advantage for a simple reason, because heat escapes through the skin, and a large body has less surface area compared with its volume, so it loses heat more slowly than a smaller body. That means a very large animal spends fewer calories per kilogram just to hold temperature, which matters most at night when feeding stops and the temperature drops. But is size enough when wind can strip warmth all day and snow can force longer travel just to reach food? Insulation is where cold survival becomes easy to see because mammoths did not rely on bare skin and a thin coat, and instead carried a fur system built to trap warm air and resist wetting. The dense underlayer holds air close to the body, while longer outer hairs reduce wind penetration and help shed snow before it can soak through. And staying dry matters because wet insulation loses value quickly. When the coat stays dry and air stays trapped, heat loss slows down, and the animal can spend more of its energy on feeding and movement rather than constantly replacing lost warmth. Under the fur, fat helped in two ways because it reduced heat loss under the skin and stored energy for the hardest weeks. Snow can cover plants and make grazing slower, and storms can force herds to burn more calories traveling. So fat reserves help an animal stay warm and keep moving even when feeding is limited. Fat also matters for mothers because lactation costs energy, and a mother that runs out of reserves too early may struggle to support her calf at the exact time the calf needs steady nutrition most. How does a mother keep a calf growing when winter makes every calorie harder to replace? Warmth is expensive, and paying for it depends on how well an animal can turn winter plants into usable energy. Mammoths were herbivores, and winter plants can be fibrous and low in calories, so they needed a digestive system that could extract the maximum value from tough material. A large gut supports long fermentation by microbes, which breaks down fiber more effectively and increases energy gained from each feeding session. And fermentation also releases heat as a natural byproduct, which supports body temperature in a steady way. If digestion is helping create warmth, and fur and fat are helping keep warmth, can you see why these traits work best as one system rather than as separate tricks? Teeth were part of that system because grinding coarse plants for hours every day wears molars down, and once teeth become too worn, the animal cannot process enough food to meet winter demands. In extreme cold, the failure can become fast because the animal must spend more time feeding, while also spending more energy staying warm. and weight loss can accelerate late in winter when grazing is worse. What good is a thick coat if the animal cannot turn plants into calories anymore? Cold also attacks the body unevenly, so reducing heat loss from exposed parts saves energy across the whole season. Mammoths are often described as having smaller ears than modern elephants, and smaller ears reduce exposed surface area in wind while still allowing hearing. Circulation can conserve heat as well because warm blood traveling into limbs can lose heat. And many mammals have vessel arrangements that transfer heat back toward the core before it escapes. How much energy can a giant save across an entire winter if it wastes less heat with every step it takes? Movement in snow is another place where survival can fail because snow and ice increase the chance of slipping, and a fall can injure a heavy animal in ways that are hard to recover from when healing is slow and food is difficult to reach. An injured giant cannot travel to better grazing, cannot keep up with the herd, and becomes more vulnerable to predators, so stable movement is a major advantage. Herd travel helps here because packed paths reduce the cost of walking, and moving together reduces separation, which protects calves and prevents predators from isolating a weak individual. If the ground is dangerous and the weather is unstable, is it smarter to rush for distant food or to move in a way that protects the herd from injuries that could become losses? Seasonal movement also reduced risk because staying too long in a poor feeding area can cause gradual weight loss that becomes dangerous before anyone notices. And a herd that remembers routes to better grazing spends less time wandering in wind while searching. Moving at the right time matters because late winter can arrive with crusted snow that makes digging harder, while early spring can turn ground soft and tiring. So choosing when to travel can decide whether adults keep their condition and whether calves keep gaining weight. How do you cross long distances in cold weather without burning more calories than the new feeding ground can repay? Feeding behavior mattered too, because snow can hide plants and increase the time spent searching, which increases exposure to wind and increases energy waste. Mammoths could use their trunks to move snow aside and reach vegetation more efficiently, and that efficiency supports steadier calorie intake, which supports warmth, movement, and calf care. When a species reproduces slowly, calf survival matters across decades because each surviving calf is a future adult that will help keep the next generation alive. If a herd loses too many calves for just a few winters, how long does it take for the population to recover? Predators were always present, and winter made their pressure sharper because deep snow can slow a weakened adult, and calves remain vulnerable even in a strong herd. Predators do not need to win often to matter because large mammals reproduce slowly, so small increases in deaths can push a population into decline. This helps explain why these giants could thrive for a long time and still disappear later, because their success depended on open grazing landscapes. And those landscapes shifted as climates warmed and moisture patterns changed, while humans expanded into many of the same regions. What happens when a species tuned for a particular kind of cold open world is forced into a different kind of habitat faster than its biology can adjust? Ice Age giants survived extreme cold because they did not rely on one trait, and they did not depend on toughness alone, since their survival came from a full system that reduced heat loss, stored energy for hard weeks, extracted calories from tough food, and protected young long enough for them to grow. When you put those pieces together, you can see why these animals were so successful, and you can also see why the balance could break when conditions changed. So here is the question to leave you with, because it goes straight to survival, which is whether you think the biggest advantage was insulation, energy reserves, or herd behavior that kept calves alive when winter was at its worst. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for more history that stays easy to follow while still explaining the real reasons behind survival.